It's about that time to grab your favorite snack and sit back and relax, because you are now listening to the MovieTime podcast with your hosts, LOWKEY Geek Rene Zalata and Blake the Wolf. Take it away, boys.
What's up, everybody? We are back. We took a 1 week break because, unfortunately, I wasn't feeling great. There's definitely something was going around the last couple of weeks. People were getting sick and everything like that. Then, all of a sudden, we got into this crazy madness of Oscar nominations and all that. So we are back, and we're here to give you our thoughts and opinions as to what went down Tuesday morning, that fateful Tuesday morning. And of course, I'm here with my buddy, my partner in crime, my MovieTime movie bro, Blake the Wolf. What's going on, man?
Bro, I've not slept since the nominations. I've been so worked up about all of those snubs. I've just been tweeting about it nonstop and saying, how dare you not recognize Paul Mescal's work in Foe or All of Us Strangers. And I've also been catching up on the nominees because there's a bunch of movies you're like, maybe that'll get nominated and I kind of want to see it, or definitely, but you got only so much time. So now they dropped the nominees, just been watching a lot of these documentaries, some internationals, the Bobby Wine documentary, recommend. American Symphony, fully recommend. Flamin' Hot, saw it.
You did?
Recommend. It was entertaining. It was cute. But yeah, just been going through, just doing that with my life. Some just knocking out short films, etc. Nice. Yeah, having a great time over here. Totally healthy to just be staring at a screen for 3 days straight after they released the nominations.
Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all. No, nothing.
That's why it's nice to be on this side of the screen, though. That is much. Yeah, my eyes needed a break at least.
There you go.
Now I can look at myself for a moment and recognize my humanity and not just be absorbed by the big glowing light in the middle of my living room.
Well, I'm glad we could use this forum as a kind of a reprieve for you from a little break for your movie watching and all that. But yeah, excited to just run down everything that went down. We will talk about obviously the snubs, the surprises, and just basically talk about what we expect to happen leading up onto the Oscar Awards ceremony show there. So obviously we are very happy for you to join us and tune in during this time. So let's just kind of cover some of the overarching stats of the awards and what it means for the studios involved, like what was included. Oh, wow. You okay? I know it's insane to talk about some of this stuff.
What just happened?
That was
talking about Oscars again.
You had some weird allergic reaction.
Yeah, I've just been thinking about it too much. I think my body's like, I'll push through. Don't worry.
I don't think I've heard anyone cough and sneeze at the same time. That was like fascinating.
Thank goodness we recorded that.
Yeah. All right. So, one of the things that stood out after all was said and done is kind of the dynamic switch in studios as far as how many how many nominees each studio had. And we're seeing a shift happening now. And we slowly started seeing it in the last couple of years, but I feel like this year even more so, where we still have Disney Searchlight with 20 overall nominees leading the group. But in number 2, we have Netflix with 18, which is fascinating. And then tied with them is Universal Focus with also 18. Next in line, we have Apple with 13 to come in. Warner Brothers only 9. So they definitely have fallen and dropped down that list. We have A24 with 7, which is great to see them kind of inch in there. I think, I don't know if this is the most. Well, no, that wouldn't be true because Everything Everywhere All at Once really helped them, right? As far as nominations were concerned that year. I don't have those stats in front of me now, but we have Neon.
What was the stat actually that you're talking about?
A24, how many nominees they got. So I'm pretty sure that year of Everything Everywhere All at Once, that's probably their best year as far as Oscar nominations are concerned. You also have Neon with 7, Amazon, MGM with 5. So that's an interesting stat to kind of take a look at as far. Oh, and Paramount with only 2. We're talking about like major studios and all. Huge shift and dynamic shift. And again, it looks like the streamers are getting definitely more and more recognition. I mean, they have the budgets behind them. So you have Netflix, who has a lot of original movies throughout the year. Apple slowly getting in there, and Amazon with MGM having their little say too. So, out of all of these stats, does anything stand out to you from these numbers here?
I think part of what's interesting is we're out of the pandemic streamer era, where last year was a year where a lot of movies were not debuting at home. They were debuting in theaters, or they would have a dual release in theaters and at home, or they would at least do the select city thing. And then you would watch a movie's numbers jump up on a streamer. And so it actually helps quite a bit when a movie is ubiquitously available to people and voters, that conversation going. And last year, when there was the strikes, it definitely was a barrier to folks getting the word out about their movies. Right. So then someone logs in and they pull up their app that they're using all the time, Netflix or whatever, and then it just says, hey, you should watch this. They go, oh, right, I didn't hear about that. I didn't see the interview with the stars on it. And so it's definitely a different era, but it seems like it's solidified that we are the old major studios. They're still doing okay, but it's not like, oh, this is a pandemic. This might be a change that's, at the very least, the landscape has shifted.
Yeah.
And really, the only thing I could kind of see changing is if things come back to bite the streamers, to where, oh, Netflix is spending a lot of money, Apple's spending a lot of money, not only on the budgets for these movies, but for awards campaigns, etc. So then maybe they dial that back. And you see it with like original content, where Netflix is doing less prestige TV these days than they used to. And they're doing it more content that's entertaining the masses, but less critically acclaimed. So you could kind of see that with some of these awards, and that this might be a convenient year for some of them, where a couple movies get smaller categories. And I'm curious, what do you have off the top what the Apple Plus ones are? Because that, I know Napoleon is going to have a couple of those nominations, but I don't know what's rounding those out. So I'm a little bit surprised with some of those numbers, but not shocked at all. I am curious, though, to what degree is it coincidence, where just a random movie giving them a bunch of noms that they might not get next year? What do you have?
It's Killers of the Flower Moon. That was Apple.
Right,
yeah. So that's the thing that led them pretty much.
Give them a couple Napoleons and a bunch of Killers, and then next year, if you, because what was it last year, or was Emancipation the Will Smith movie? I think that would have been eligible last year in theory. Yeah, I think that was an Apple movie. But anyway, you could hit the wrong movie, and if they didn't get Killers, then now they're at 2 or something like that off the top. So is it consistent enough to where the numbers will always shake out this way? Maybe not. But at the very least, we do know that the landscape and how people watch movies has forever changed. And you're not going to necessarily put the genie back in the bottle, but will Netflix always be right there at the top? Maybe not. Maybe if they change their business model, and if some of those other streamers are not investing in prestige film the way that they have been in recent years, then that could change pretty quickly. It is interesting, though, that you have the indies and the streamers and the old Hollywood studios all kind of looking for their piece of that Oscar pie. And it shook out to where they're not that far off, to where an A24 and a Netflix and the big studios are all up there, at least with a good chunk of awards.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be seeing more and more of this kind of closing up, and where we eventually, I could foresee us seeing A24 on a yearly basis always having anywhere between 10 and 15 nominees, very comparable to like a Warner Brothers or a Disney Searchlight. And it's all about the quality, and also the change in kind of the voting body of the Academy too, who they are starting to be more in tune with that type of storytelling, that type of movie and filmmaking, as opposed to those typical kind of studio productions where they're not getting as much of the attention as they used to be in previous years. But also, I think this also has a lot to play with, the pandemic pushing a lot of things. So really towards the end of last year, we got so many movies that were coming out just all across the board. It was just really, really hard to kind of keep up. And, we could see that when it comes to the nominations that were announced, it pretty much spread the gamut around all of the different things. And I think that's why it led to a lot of, snubs or surprises, and which kind of leads to my next stat here, where there were so many movies that were well talked about last year, well received. And a lot of these movies at certain times had a lot of buzz behind them. And then all of a sudden, zilch, they got basically shut out and zeroed out as far as nominations are concerned during the Oscars. And here are the majority of the movies that had 0 Oscar nominations for this year. You had one that I think you and I are a little disappointed about, and that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We thought at least for animation, they should have at least been considered. Super Mario Brothers movie, which was probably the best animated film of last year not for us, but I think for a certain generation and a certain kind of
my nephews who are 5 years old, that was their first movie they ever saw in theaters, and they loved it.
Like a certain movie going, like for families and all that. Yeah, no,
okay.
Everyone was waiting for a Super Mario Brothers movie, and we finally got one. And I think the majority of these people loved what they saw.
It was a big deal. It was a huge deal. It was dominating the box office for a minute, for sure. If you're going to put it over TMNT or Boy and the Heron for love and quality, mixing them together, probably not. But if you're just talking about box office and a group of people going to the movies and dads and there's kids loving it, moms and they're taking the whatever, family friendly, and where's Peaches, man? Original song.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
Yeah.
What?
One of the most talked about songs of last year. It's basically like very kind of equivalent to Let It Go. Like I saw performances in schools of kids performing this song on the piano, and yet no nomination at all for original song. The next one here, All of Us Strangers.
When in 2007, Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly, and Jack Black, who sang Peaches, had a song at the Oscars called A Comedian at the Oscars. And it's like A Comedian at the Oscars, the saddest one of all, something like that. Definitely one of those great classic Oscars clips. You might get recommended by YouTube Shorts at some point. But that's what that makes me think of. You do get Ken, but you don't get Peaches. So.
Exactly, yeah. All of Us Strangers, another movie that was highly praised, highly talked about, not just for the movie itself, but for the performances between Paul Mescal and the rest of the crew there. Nothing.
Andrew Scott, the screenplay, that could have been nominated for a bunch.
Yeah, nothing at all whatsoever.
There's another version where they get 6 nominations pretty easily. There's a version where it could be in the zone of interest spot, kind of like the very indie, but gets a bunch of nominations.
Yeah. Iron Claw, that was another movie that was really talked about. Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, their performances were highly praised. But I think going into this, we kind of knew that this was not going to be something that we're going to be hearing anything about going into the nominations.
Somebody was talking about that might be a victim of the strikes in a way, and that I think it had an exception with the studio it was under, but it wasn't released at a festival. It didn't get that big push. You didn't get the interviews and the, oh my gosh, Zac Efron might be nominated for an Oscar kind of talk. And even just a conversation like that can push something from, it's not just about Zac Efron at that point. It's that people take it seriously as an Oscars movie. People are going to go see it. And it's doing pretty well at the box office. Mm-hmm. It brings A24 movies to wrestling fans. And there are going to be folks all over the country who probably may have never seen an A24 movie before seeing that one. So it's successful in its own way, but definitely not in that serious awards type of way. And you could very easily see it getting a few acting nominations, screenplay, some of the more prestigious, maybe the editing or cinematography or stuff like that. And zilch, nada.
Nothing. Yeah. And this past weekend of the date we're recording this, The Iron Claw became the 6th highest grossing film in A24's history. So it definitely is doing really well in the box office, but no recognition at the Oscars. Next on the list here, we have Asteroid City. Wes Anderson did get a nomination for The Wonderful World of Henry Sugar, but nothing for his major movie release that at the very least, we thought production design was something that should at least be recognized for that film. John Wick 4, arguably one of the best action films from last year. Instead, Mission Impossible got more recognition out of everything.
Which is the first Mission Impossible movie to ever get nominated for any Oscar, keeping in mind that for all the other movies, they have the 2, or most of them at least, they have the 2 sound categories. That's wild.
Crazy.
The first one was directed by Brian De Palma.
Oh, yeah.
And not even taken seriously. That's that kind of thing where as a casual movie fan who loves blockbusters and doesn't like Oscars bait, that person could be pissed when they hear a stat like that. So this is actually prestigious and action, but they're not taking it seriously. That's one of those things I would love. We need a stunt category. Mm-hmm. Let's just keep saying it every year. Let's keep banging that drum.
Absolutely.
And we need the Oscars to start taking comedies and comedy, action, horror seriously as genres, because those are also movies, and they can very often basically the same hit rate, in my opinion, as other types of movies. As can be great, can be bad, but that's true of dramas too. That's true of any genre.
Yeah, and I think that could be possibly be why one of the reasons why Beau is Afraid didn't get any kind of nomination really is because people see that as a horror film because of Ari Aster's background in horror. And I think that's kind of unfortunate, to be honest with you, where like a movie like that stuck in people's minds for so long. Even today, like I'm still getting comments from like our review of people who are just watching it for the first time. And they're saying like, wow, what a film, the long lasting effect, the kind of message in there about mental health and kind of like the demons that eat inside of you. It's unfortunate, and I don't know, maybe in time things will change, but as of right now it still remains that those type of genre films don't tend to get any kind of attention during these award seasons. Next here we have The Killer. You and we talked about The Killer a lot. And, we were praising Michael Fassbender's performance in there and just the overall directing. Obviously, this is, Fincher and everything, but nothing there whatsoever. Arguably our second favorite movie of the year, Saltburn.
I was looking at our top 12 list, yeah. And a lot of these, not most of them did get at least something. Saltburn was our top rated one that got 0. But zero. 4. John Wick was up there. The Killer was up there. You mentioned a bunch of them already, but Saltburn.
Saltburn. Nothing. Yeah.
Not a screenplay, not a set design, nada.
Nothing for Barry Keoghan, which a lot of people were talking about. Just not a thing. So very, very interesting. Priscilla. A lot of people were praising Priscilla also when that came out. Sofia Coppola is actually... I think she had some comments online and how angry she is about the lack of representation and all. But nothing for her film there. Michael Mann's Ferrari, nothing whatsoever. Kind of crazy when you think about it.
Just wait till the MovieTime Awards, though, because Cruise might get an Aunt May award. We'll see.
That's right. That's right.
No, not finalized yet, but we'll see.
We'll see. And I think a lot of people were kind of like expecting maybe Penelope Cruz's name will pop up in supporting actress, right? But nothing at all. And the last one here on the list is Origin, the Ava DuVernay film that I think towards the end of the year was getting a significant push by the studios and by those involved, almost to the point where people were kind of expecting another Andrea Riseborough situation. But we didn't get to see any of that here for this one.
Yeah, the main narrative there is they were trying to do an Andrea Riseborough type push. They did change the rules a little bit, so they weren't allowed to campaign for it as an Oscar, but they were campaigning for, hey, people, you should go see this movie, huh? And
Right.
then trying to raise its profile. But they were also doing it very late, where it was like the Friday before votes were due or something like that.
Right.
And they started the Riseborough one way before that.
Like months
so,
before, yeah.
So maybe that's part of the problem. And maybe part of the problem is if it's not in theaters and you can only suggest people go see it, maybe they couldn't have done it earlier. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing to look at. And I think one of the things you and I talked about in the fact that there was so much momentum going for a lot of these things we talked about, and people too, like the whole Charles Milton situation. I think we were kind of surprised that didn't go forward and move on forward. But there was also some history setting stuff that happened for these nominations. This is the first time in Oscars history where 3 of the 10 movies nominated for Best Picture were helmed by women, and that is Anatomy of a Fall, Past Lives, and Barbie. So when we're talking now, again, you have to think about it when we talk about Best Film. That's an award that goes to the producers mostly, and of course we know Emma Stone is a producer there. Anatomy of a Fall, Justin Triet is part of that, along with Sandra Hüller. And Barbie, that's Margot Robbie, who is like a major producer of that film, along with Greta Gerwig behind it all. So that's something interesting to see. Obviously, Lily Gladstone, the first Native American to be nominated in a major acting category, if at all anything. I think a lot of people
there
always
are
like
different caveats to that, which we've seen it before with was it Michelle Yeoh, the first woman to identify as an Asian or something like that?
Yeah.
There were caveats on it, but and then there's also, if you're looking at it as there was, for Roma, there was someone it was a North American who identified as indigenous, right, and was an indigenous actress for Roma. So there's certain caveats on it, but it was something like that. It's still groundbreaking regardless, and at the very least, it's so effing rare, which obviously it shouldn't be, but that's the world we live in.
Exactly.
So it's not trying to take anything away from it either. It is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, she said it herself too. She basically just flat out said, "Why do I have to be the first? Like, why does it have to be like that? It should just be something that's common and normal." Also, a lot of people who don't understand the history of it too will go back in time and said, "No, there was a Native American that was given an Oscar. That person who starred with, I believe it was." The Godfather himself. Who is that?
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando. He gave his award to somebody.
Right. She went on the stage to accept the award on his behalf, and he refused to be there. Yeah. So the stat I'm seeing here, she is the 4th Indigenous and 1st Native American woman to be nominated for Best Actress at the Oscars.
Awesome.
So,
well, hey,
big fucking deal. It really is.
It's fantastic, and I love to see it, and she deserved it too. So, but also there was definitely the side of controversy too, and I think a lot of people were going nuts online, basically calling fraud and how could yous and mainly because Barbie being the #1 movie of last year, the high ticket item, the big movie event of the year that everyone went to go and partake in, how you have the director Greta Gerwig not getting recognized for director, Margot Robbie not getting recognized for Best Actress. We did get Ryan Gosling for supporting actor, and we did get America Ferrera for supporting actress, who I think, to be quite honest with you, I was not expecting at all. And I think that was like a pretty big surprise there. But then we have the backlash to the backlash, where now outlets are kind of spinning it and saying, well, if you think about it, a lot of movies every year that are helmed by women aren't recognized by the Oscars, this and that, or they were nominated, just not in the categories you were hoping. And kind of what I brought up before, where Margot Robbie is part of the Best Film nomination and Greta Gerwig is in the writing nomination and all that. And I think, it's just another way to spin things. Hollywood Reporter also reported this week that the director's branch of the Academy is the oldest and mostly male conglomerate within the Academy, the voting body. Currently 75% male, which could have been a contributing factor regarding the omission of Barbie's Greta Gerwig's Best Director nomination. But then people were very quick to bring up, well, why was Justine Triet they nominated? This and that. So it go back and forth, pointing fingers, do what you want to do. I think for the majority of people, it was surprising. And it was unfortunate to the point where you had Hillary Clinton putting out a tweet out there. Obviously, Ryan Gosling had his comment out there. Any way you look at it, obviously, you're not going to please everybody, right? There are going to be people who are very disappointed. I was very honest in our predictions in saying that I don't think Margot Robbie was going to get nominated for actress because, honestly, I don't think she was the strongest part in that movie. If I'm just to objectively look at it as far as a performance standpoint within the movie, I don't think she was the strongest that stood out. At the same time, I would easily say I don't think America Ferrera's was the strongest as well. But obviously, this performance hit people in a different way, and especially those who were involved in the voting body of the Academy. We didn't have a chance to really talk about it during our reactions and once the nominees were announced. What is your whole overall take of the Greta Gerwig snub, the Margot Robbie snub, and were there any other snubs that you were really like, whoa, I'm surprised that didn't go that way?
There are a multitude of factors, and anyone who wants to oversimplify it and say, hey, they're not sexist, a woman got nominated. It's not that dissimilar from the person who's like, no, I have a black friend, so therefore I can't, that's so stupid. That is so narrow-minded. And if you want to look for an out and an excuse, sure, you can find something. Good job. It doesn't mean much. So we got to do our best to walk and chew gum at the same time and keep multiple things in mind. Yep. One, there are biases, and some of those biases include ones that are less bigoted and more like they don't like movies that have comedy, and Will Ferrell movies where he's silly don't get nominated, if ever, then very rarely. So there's biases on genre. If we also want to go, oh, hey, Justine Triet got nominated, so therefore there is no institutional sexism or racism in the Oscars, that's the dumbest thing ever. That is also true. There is also the possibility, let's pretend neither of those factors existed at all. You could be a woman voter who's young and say, I don't think Margot Robbie deserves it and is in the top 5. And that there can also be a valid point there, which is what you're trying to make, is you want to put her on your ballot, objectively get rid of the biases. Now, we definitely can't get rid of all of our biases. If we want to ignore that those exist, then that's part of the problem. A lot of folks going, oh, no, I'm totally not racist. I'm totally not biased. I'm just going to kind of keep propagating the system and the systemic biases that exist and are within me and within this institution. That's part of what we're dealing with. So if someone is shocked that this happened, this isn't the worst year for example, female directors. One of my favorites was when Frances McDormand read out the nominees for Best Director off memory, and she goes, the 5 male nominees for Best Director, or 5 the best movies directed by men, or something like that. It was brilliant.
It was great.
That happens almost every single year. Is this year better by 1? Yes. Is it better by enough? Probably not, in my opinion. I think I put Greta Gerwig there. Personally, I take out Justine Triet. And I also would be more likely to put in Past Lives, I think, than Anatomy of a Fall. That's based on my preferences of what movies I like, what kind of movies I like, etc. There are other factors even beyond all of that. There's politics of how well liked a movie is, how well liked a performance is. Is the studio someone who has paid you well in the past for your work? You're going to be more likely, if you're in the industry, to vote for that person. Or, oh yeah, they shook my hand at that awards luncheon last year, and I like their vibe, so I want to award them. There is a popularity contest aspect, all of this. Speaking of which,
the campaigning and all that stuff, it's all part of it.
We're not there yet, but part of the reason why Justine Triet is there and not in international, which that bias alone of folks going, oh, we can't put them in international, but we want to nominate Justine Triet. So we're going to now we're more likely to put Justine Trier in director is because France didn't put in Anatomy of a Fall as their contestant for international because of politics. Very clearly, there was an article that came out. There's a committee of
I was just
7.
about to read it. Yep.
It went 3-4 against Anatomy of a Fall because of political statements that Justine Trier made against the neoliberal. So if you want to get into that now, I don't know if now's the time to move over.
Yeah,
we have our own issues with how these awards are even set up. But politics are just the name of the game with a lot of this crap. At the end of the day, you can't necessarily take it that seriously as a huge shock and surprise and how appalling. And the awards also don't mean that these are the best performances. And not everyone's going to agree with it. And there isn't a monolithic body of Oscars voters who say, this is the one. We all got together and we all decided unanimously, this is it. No, a lot of these things kind of just shake out in a weird way. And those systemic biases definitely are very apparent, especially in the case like Anatomy of a Fall is such a weird example this year of how that shakes out in its favor and against it in different awards.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was definitely one of the things that I caught wind of during Anatomy of the Fall's run during the Cannes Film Festival, when she was starting to get recognized for her achievement for that movie. And then it started like kind of creeping out some of the things that, you know, France had issues with a lot of her comments that she was making during the kind of film festival circuit. And when I started hearing the rumblings of, you know, them pulling that out of contention and putting in the taste of things instead, I was just like, are you kidding me? Anatomy of the Fall was your Palme d'Or winner. And it was just so weird that there was all that behind the scenes happening. But the article you're referring to, I have one pulled up here from Variety that basically just outlined a lot of the conversations that were happening during the whole committee, the French Academy Committee, doing their whole back and forth and trying to figure out what they're going to do between Anatomy of the Fall and the whatever. But it says here, this year's committee, which ended up clashing violently over the final decision, according to several insiders.
Violently?
It says here violently, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Did they duel? I don't know how they handle this.
I think it was
France,
a lot of glove slapping, you know, a lot of like, you know.
That makes sense.
But it included former Lionsgate boss Patrick Washburger, Charles Gilbert, and producer of Annette, Oscar-winning composer Alexandre Desplat, as well as directors Oliver Assayas from Carlos and Munya Medor Papicha. The sales agents, Sabine Kemali and Tanja Masoner, the vote came down to 4-3 split, but then one person who had voted for Taste of Things changed their mind and asked for a second vote, which was turned down, according to an insider. It just sounds like a hot mess. If you think
joke about French politics here, move on.
Insert the damn court scene that we saw in Anatomy of Fall.
Were they all wearing wigs, just out of curiosity? Yeah. I'm not trying to disparage or disparage this group of people, but I'm having a hard time taking this spat seriously.
It's so nuts. And then you have the article also mentions that the French Oscar committee had missed opportunities before. For instance, when it picked Julia Ducournau's Palme d'Or winning body horror movie Titane over Audrey Dewan's Venice Prize winning abortion drama Happening in 2021. While Titane didn't get nominated, Happening had considerable momentum because it was released in the U.S. as the Supreme Court voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision. The French board's decision that year caused such a scandal that it led to an overhaul of the commission, prompting the exit of permanent members such as Cannes Film Festival boss Thierry Frémaux and then Caesar Academy president Véronique Callia, while the president of Unifrance, the French Film and TV Org, and the president of the French Film Board, Dominique Bonnat, were allowed to stay, but as non-voting members. So if you think
that sounds so frustrating.
Yeah, if
you're allowed to be here, you just can't. at
You
all.
just can't vote. You just don't have a voice, but you're still allowed to hang out in the room with us. Yeah, if you think U.S. government's politics is crazy, this in itself is by far ridiculous and mind-boggling. Because, yeah, if you really think about it, could you imagine if Anatomy of a Fall was included in international feature film? That would have totally changed, I think, the dynamic of the outcome of several categories, in my opinion.
Sincerely. And also, if you wanted to make a logical, rational, let's say you knew what the future held, that we would end up here, you might actually go with, not necessarily that if you knew everything except how international would shake out, you might actually do exactly what you did on purpose and say, we want to spread the love. Taste of Things is more likely to win international, and Anatomy of a Fall will have a bunch of other awards, which isn't a bad way to do it if you're France. You say, we want 2 movies to get a lot of Oscar buzz around them. You could tell me every year a country says, hey, because like it happens frequently where, especially now, where an international movie will get a director nomination or it will get an acting nomination, a screenplay, etc. And if countries actually planned it out just right and they kind of knew, they saw the chessboard and said, okay, we don't want to put that in international because that's kind of a second tier award. We think this might actually be up for, like, Parasite for Best Picture, for example. You could have taken that out of international, put a different movie in, and you might have 2 winners or even 2 movies that get that Oscar push. Once a movie is announced as an Oscar nominee, its numbers just jump. So if you told me they did that on purpose, I would absolutely think that's pretty smart. But the way it fucking shook out is this is not on purpose. This was a big old oopsie doopsie. And that's another option. You say, oh, this already won the Palme d'Or. We want 2 big awards this year. We want double the bump. And nope, that's not what they did. They just had a whole weird kerfuffle. And that sucks. I think this could be the year. We see it every now and then if there's enough news stories about some silliness behind the scenes. This could be the year which we've been suggesting now since we started this, stop leaving it up to international groups of backroom cigar smoking deals to say who we get to put at the Oscars. The Oscars should have more of a say in that, or at least not have those gatekeepers there. We've seen it where it's politically problematic at times, where a movie will have a homosexual character, so that governing body won't put it forth for the Oscars. And now the Oscars are in bed with, pardon the pun, with a group of people that they wouldn't agree with on the politics of it.
Right.
At the very least, have some kind of mechanism or control around it to where maybe they get to put forth a few, or they get to shortlist it or something. You can do something like that. And then the other thing is, don't give the award to the country themselves.
No.
That's also fucking weird to be like, hey, France, here's your award.
Yeah.
So bizarre. Give it to maybe. I don't even love that at the end of the night that producers get the award at the Oscars. Someone talks about this. This year would actually be kind of cool if it went to a Barbie. It probably won't. But to get a Margot Robbie up there, but to give the last award is the person no one's ever heard of before, giving a speech and being a weirdo usually, and just some businessman who's has their head in the clouds. The money guy. And he's just like, hey, listen, everybody, here's what I want to say, and no one gives a shit. If you want to end the night to where people are ready to turn off their TV, that's a good way to do it. If you want to end, leave them wanting more, have it be the director, the star of the movie, anything else. But
the whole crew, the whole cast, like
don't just give the one award to the producer, give it to the movie itself or something. You know what I mean? Like a group of 10 of them. Make more gold statues. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, come on, they could easily do that. I mean, it's not like they're really suffering as far as money and budget's concerned. One last thing that I should note from this article that it's blowing my mind right now. Because it's just, it's freaking nuts. So Anatomy of the Fall, not only was it widely embraced by critics and audiences, it was also in theaters for nearly a month and was considered the highest grossing French Palme d'Or winner since Blue is the Warmest Color.
Such a hit there.
Right.
Which is hilarious because the French, but it's not Spider-Verse there. It's not Super Mario Bros. It's fucking Anatomy of a Fall, just crushing box office numbers in France.
Yeah. So you have that happening for Anatomy of the Fall. The Taste of Things wasn't even released in theaters in France.
Still not here either.
It's still not here.
Still wait to see it. So I've heard so much about this unnominated film.
Yeah, I was just
And
like,
if there wasn't
what
all this
is
BS,
happening?
then maybe I almost said it never fall. Then maybe Taste of Things, which can we get a mashup of Taste of Poor Things? That might be fun. I can't wait until that's released.
Can we do that? Yeah.
I've seen Willem Dafoe the burp, and right after they make the meal,
You have Juliette Binoche trying to fuck everything. It's just crazy.
But if there wasn't this controversy, then maybe Taste of Things actually gets nominated. But people go, hey, I liked Anatomy of a Fall, and I don't, now I'm going to, on a j'accuse kind of way, I'm now not going to give this because they just fucking fumbled the ball so hard.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
It's nuts.
Great
and like
story.
you said, every year we're hearing a lot of really absurd stories about the behind the scenes stuff.
Some version. And then there's the ones we never really even hear about, which we don't really know. There could be some movie every year where the Taiwanese, any group of people anywhere in the world, their voting body had something like this, and it just didn't quite come to the surface because the other movie didn't get all those nominations.
Right.
But this happens more than we know, and we already know about it too much. Oscars, fix your shit.
Seriously.
Why is it this way? Stop.
Yeah. Especially if you are
make an exception. If you get nominated in other awards, now you can now be retrofitted into that, or now you can have two, or maybe we do, because part of the reason they limit it is so that way you just don't have 5 French nominees every year, or 3 French and 2 Italian. I actually get that. It is a nice way to look at things, and you go, oh, Bhutan had a really great nominee this year that was underseen, and we'd like to put that forth. It doesn't happen often enough, and they're usually very European set of nominees, with some exceptions, sure.
Yeah.
But there is a benefit to doing it this way that has definitely outlived its necessity. And yeah, you can go ahead and set it up in another, like original song. You only get 2 from each country, or any version of anything. Have a large group of voters in every country. Or if you're an Oscar member and you're recognized as French, now you get to vote. Something like that, but not like a group of 7 people with some weird personalities and infighting. Don't know.
Infighting, finger pointing.
To screen all the movies. Yeah.
It's nuts. It's really nuts. But yeah, especially if you are an organization that's supposed to be the above all and all awards organization that recognize a certain field, right? Then you should take more ownership and like really try to help dictate more as to how the submission process should look like, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And if it doesn't make sense, like if the lady who spoke at the beginning of the nominations, she's the Academy president, right? I think for the last year or two. I'm sure she's reading an article like this and just be like, what the fuck is going on, right? Like, now is the time to kind of correct it, right? And make it a little bit more to the point where it's a little bit more organized, because that in itself just sounds like a giant shit show. And I don't know how they only gave the 2 examples between Titan and that of last year.
Oh, you mean Titon?
Titon. Sorry, is that how you pronounce it? My bad. Titon. I have yet to see that movie. Should I see that movie? I have yet to see it.
Maybe that'll be your next punishment next time you lose something like the way you did recently.
But is it a punishment though, or will I think that it's a pretty awesome movie?
I'll tell you this. I watched it at a theater where they serve food and the food wasn't good, and the movie is so nauseating. Is it cool? Yeah, maybe you'll like it. You're because you're a sicko. But it is some weird body horror. I saw it. It was on a date, and we're both sitting there like, what the fuck? I've never seen anything like this. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a scene where a woman and a car are intimate together, and then she bleeds motor oil. Let's put it that way. Something like that.
She bleeds motor oil? I think I get it. Oh, okay. All right.
There's a lot, and it gets much weirder after that. That's when you're like, oh, that was a weird scene in a movie. And they're like, oh my God, that was the appetizer. But the food that I ate at that theater was not good. And so my stomach is literally turning during the movie with this stuff happening. I was like, get me out of here. then the night got worse after that.
So if the food was actually really good, would you have still gotten that reaction?
It would have been stomach turning, but at least I wouldn't have actually had a biological problem within me, the way that the character had a biological problem within them. We'll put it that way.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. But yeah, I mean, something has to change. Something has to give. This is just nuts. Where like, fix
obvious.
it. Yeah.
Fix it. We've been saying this, and now this year it's more apparent than ever. If they don't fix it this year, what? Why? How? We've already come up with a couple here. This isn't even our jobs.
No.
I'm sure there's even more elegant solution out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Fucking fix it.
Yeah. And I also heard, I don't have the article in front of me, but there's also backlash in the documentary category too, where a lot of people are saying like the documentary voting process is unfair as well. So again, I don't have the article. I didn't read it, but obviously, again, we're going to get a lot of controversies and all that stuff. But I feel like a lot of this stuff could be easily solved.
Let's say this. We have a lot of new blood in the Oscars voting body. We have new leadership. This year is one of the years people are saying it's one of the best field of 10 for Best Picture. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of great movies. There's a lot to be excited about in cinema, in what movies are nominated. Are there snubs? Are there flubs? Yeah, 100%. This could be even better, but so while there's a lot to be excited about, this is a moment where it could get better from here. So they've made improvements in recent years. We were very skeptical in the face of Oscars So White, which have they done enough? No. Will it ever be enough? Probably not. There will always be some headline like this forever, I assume. But there have definitely been strides to where other movies have been considered, and it's not always the green booky weird Oscar bait crap every single year. And you'll have an exception, but when your exception is Coda instead of Green Book, that's positive. Right. When you have movies like Moonlight and Everything Everywhere All at Once and Nomadland winning Best Picture, that's pretty exciting. And they have definitely made improvements. Keep doing that. And don't just say, oh, we don't need to fix this other problem too. If you add a stunt category and fix this weird problem, I think it makes a huge fucking difference.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
You get more populist movies, and you're more likely to get a better selection of international movies. And if you fix this problem, it also might help that the problem they were trying to fix with this whole concept they have, you might actually be more likely to get a movie from Africa, from South America, from Asia, and like not just the same, for like have it to where the actual best movies rise to the top without those gatekeepers in the middle keeping out some actually high quality movies.
Yeah. And I think making simple adjustments and changes like that will also improve on your viewership at the end of the day too. Because once you start hearing people, finding out that you're being more inclusive, you're being more open, you're honoring more aspects of the filmmaking industry that's never been recognized before, like stuntmen, stuntwomen, taking more into consideration the comedies, the horrors. Once people can see that and they see that you're working on that more international representation or what have you, you're going to increase your viewership at the end of the day, and people are going to be actually really excited to watch the outcomes here. Not when you're having articles released about infighting on the French Voting Academy just because of some comments the director makes and whatever, this and that. And then, the whole Greta Gerwig, Margot Robbie backlash. And it's nuts. It's insane. And I think people are going to go into this just saying like, oh, the awards is tainted. Like, it's not worth me watching or whatever. People are always going to have their criticisms, but it's just really, really nuts at the end of the day. And again, it sounds easy when you and I talk about it, but there must be something there that, it's either holding them back or maybe there's no interest. Who knows? I don't know. But we'll never know until we actually, get to see some emotions and actions coming from their end there. So with all of it said and done, now it's stamped, sealed. These are the nominees that we got. End of day, end of story. What was for you? What was like the biggest surprise of the evening of the morning? I keep saying evening, but no, it was pretty morning for us.
So people talk about the snubs and the surprise nominations. There were definitely some that we weren't expecting. There wasn't very much in the out of the blue surprise. Even last year's biggest surprise, Andrea Riseborough, was a surprise that they pulled it off, but we knew that that was a possibility and that people were gunning for it. And it was a brewing headline. I've also heard talk about this is so late in award season. We've already had so many film festivals and precursors, and we already kind of know. And the betting markets, there's not nearly as much shakeup as there was even a few years ago.
Yeah.
That said, you and I both had a visceral reaction to John Williams in original score. That one I remember for sure. And then there's somebody who, Greta Gerwig not being there, we had a reaction to. Margot Robbie not being there. These are ones that are very well documented. Diane Warren being there for Flamin' Hot definitely got our attention. I personally would have liked to see Dua Lipa song in for Barbie. I think it's the best song. The existential Billie Eilish, What Was I Made For, is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I'm Just Kidding, fun. It's a fucking viral moment of the year. Is it the best song? I don't know what that. I just rewatched Barbie last night. Had a great time to that song.
Yeah.
I think the Dua Lipa song maybe should be a winner, especially if you're talking about what people might actually listen to in a car or at a club or whatever.
I think Dua Lipa is going to get her Oscar nomination for Argyle this year.
This is the year.
This is the year.
All right, Dua Lipa, let's fucking go. But other than that, I think not having Defoe, but yes, having Ruffalo was a surprise. We were expecting Defoe, not Ruffalo, based on other awards.
Yeah.
Or both, but not neither. Or not Ruffalo, not Defoe. So that was fun. I think that if you had to look at it, they've campaigned well together when they've done press junkets. And I don't know why his name's Willem Dafoe. He could be Willem Defriend. Because he's a good friend to Mark Ruffalo, and they're little buddies.
Okay.
It was really beautiful to watch them hang out together.
Congratulations.
And instead, they left him out, and now that's why he becomes Willem Dafoe. Because
he's the foe.
Yeah, his nemesis against Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruff Dafoe. Could they put them together? Yeah.
Mark Ruff Dafoe.
Just a little spelling error. They're like, I guess we're doing this together, buddy.
Ruffalo foe.
The unstoppable force of Green Goblin, whoever Defoe played, and
Green Goblin and the Hulk.
Just two real green ass superhero dudes.
The real Green Book. Green Book 2.
Stop. That's what we need. Is that crossover film.
Oh man, that would be great. I would love it.
Coleman Domingo in for Russ, and again, none of these are necessarily shocks. We knew all of these were possible, but that one was surprising.
Sterling K. Brown, I think his nomination was kind of a surprise.
Did I mess that up? Because I made some mistakes even in our live broadcast about this. Coleman Domingo is in, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Coleman is nominated for.
Did I miss that?
Sterling K. Brown was the first nomination announced for supporting actor.
That's right. It was so early, and then we had so much content after that.
Yeah, and it was like one of the out the gate.
That was a performance from that movie. Hell yeah, I'm into it. Surprising though, that is actually back to your original answer. That is the biggest surprise of that night. Yeah. Troy didn't even write it down because we were just fucking thrown into the deep end of Oscar nominations immediately.
It just became a whirlwind for us. It was just like, when you kind of like break it down by category, to start off with supporting actor and have his name pop up on screen immediately as the first one, it was a huge surprise to me because, again, after all the conversations that you and I had, his name didn't get brought up at all, really. And some of the pundits I pay attention to, they weren't mentioning him either. So that was like a nice, pleasant surprise. But then that pushed out Charles Melton completely, out of the picture, I think, once his name was announced, because it became very formulaic afterwards. Robert Downey Jr., Robert De Niro, Ryan Gosling. And then, of course, you and I were saying it could have gone either way with Defoe or Ruffalo. But they went with Ruffalo. At least someone from Poor Things was included, was nominated.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I guess the question is, did they get it right for that category?
There's, I mean, there is no right or wrong necessarily. And there's people, any of us could put Charles Melton in and be just as correct.
Yeah.
You could kind of go 10 deep on almost any of these and go, oh yeah, we could have had Mika Levy instead of John Williams in score if they look at it this way and that factor. And one of my favorites is listening to prognosticators go deep, and someone going as far as, okay, the Oscars have a bent towards international films, but they also like honoring people who've been legacy Hollywood. And in recent years, war movies do better. And you're like, okay, we've got so many fucking factors. If we're only playing the game of what's most likely to get the nominee, there's so many factors. And if you're talking about who's most deserving, there's a ton of people every year, which is one of my favorite things that we do is we go over the who should have been nominated, and especially that weren't even considered, because there's a lot of performances. A lot of people see a lot of movies. You and I see a fucking lot of movies, and there are a lot that were never even in the conversation. And maybe somebody at some point goes, that could be, but no, they're not going to take that seriously. So
we had a whole entire segment.
Actors every year who you could see being in that conversation, they just doesn't shake out that way with the way the narrative goes for whatever reason.
Yeah, we had a whole segment where I named movies that got 0 nominations, and within those movies, there were fantastic performances mentioned throughout. So it's at the end of the day, and I've said this already before, you're not going to please everyone. It's kind of hard to recognize everybody, especially when you have a year so strong as far as performances are concerned, good film is concerned. Just to go back, I think, again, it's easy to say that one of the most contending categories was director, right? You have Nolan, you have Scorsese, you have Lanthimos, and then you had Jonathan Glazer, who surprised the living crap out of me. I think that was a big surprise. Yeah. I think the big surprise in the morning for me was how well received The Zone of Interest was, because I did not think that was going to be one of those movies that Academy would really go for, and to see it recognized as much as it has been, I was actually kind of shocked by that.
This post Moonlight and post Parasite voting body, it shouldn't surprise us that much anymore, but it's still surprising, and not just 1 or 2 nominations, but was it 5 off memory? It was way more than we expected. That's for sure.
Yeah,
and even just being up there for the big awards, director and picture, is huge.
Yeah, it's big, and I think that really surprised me. But let's say we were to include Greta Gerwig, right? Who would you push out? I think you mentioned before maybe you'd push out Justin Trier at that point, right?
Personally, I didn't love Anatomy of a Fall, but there's also the weird aspect where maybe I saw it on a day I was hungry, and it's also long enough and heady enough that I'm not sure I'm in the mood to watch it again soon.
Right.
I'm not sure that I include Scorsese, which is that blasphemous, sure.
Interesting.
I think I still include Nolan and Lanthimos. Personally, I might include Glazer, but probably that's the one I think is maybe the 5th one. I think Justine Triet and Glazer were probably the 4th and 5th most likely nominated for that. The other 3 were more locked in. So those would be the 2 I would pull, and yet they're both very clearly deserving. And looking at the other nominations where Anatomy of a Fall and Zone of Interest are nominated, that they're both in for Best Picture, they're both in for Best Director. Best Actress is Sandra Hüller is in for Anatomy of a Fall, but you can also see her work in Zone of Interest helped her get that nomination. You could have seen her in Supporting Actress as well. That's, in my opinion, goes without saying. That's in a way a double nomination, even if Zone of Interest name is nowhere on that. They're both nominated for screenplays, with adapted for Zone of Interest and original for Anatomy of a Fall. And Anatomy of a Fall also gets film editing. And I'm now, this list is so long, but Zone of Interest has another. So Zone of Interest definitely has 5. Yeah. And I think Anatomy of a Fall, one picture, this is incredible for both of these movies to have that many. Picture, director, actress, screenplay, and editing. That's 5, unless I'm missing it somewhere where they don't name it. But incredible.
It's if anyone had a great morning that morning, it's Sandra Hüller, who is not a well-known name for American movie-going audiences, but to be attached to all
Like
the
Sandra
two movies.
Who?
Hüller? Nice.
Or Hüller.
Oh man, I wish I had that sound clip right now. But yeah, to be attached to those two films and to be well represented at this year's Oscars is huge. And I'm sure you're going to have.
Good Morning. Also, we thought that might be a get blanked, and it had 3 undercard for production design, costume design, and visual effects. It was in the top 10 of most nominated movies, and we thought that could be a totally blank. Creator getting 2 was a surprise. Mission Impossible getting 2 was a surprise. Yeah. Nyad getting 2, both acting, surprise. There were some movies that did better than we thought, or could have just as easily been on that blanked list, and instead just got a little. You told me that those are in the 5th spot in all their nominations. I would believe you.
Yeah. So with everything here, we already talked about our idea of what we thought snubs were. Obviously, I always say that in directing, I think Celine Song was an unfortunate snub because of Past Lives. Seemed to go with Greta Lee for acting in that. But with all this said and done, I'm sure in your mind last year, as we were watching all of these movies, we had it in our mind that this is definitely going to win. This is definitely going to win. This I could see definitely win and all. Yep. Now, we're not going to talk about our picks today.
Oppenheimer.
Well, I feel like that is, I mean, that's...
Congratulations to the Best Picture winner.
Yeah, I think that's a sure shot at this point.
If it doesn't, something...
Could you imagine? Could you imagine
the N-word, or the silly Cillian Murphy shows up on Ambien at some award show or something weird?
Or if because of the blowback with Greta Gerwig not being nominated and Margot being not nominated, all of a sudden everyone just decides to vote for Barbie.
Clinton animates her base, her 73 million.
It'll be nuts. But with everything solidified here, does it change any of your initial thoughts as to who you think will be the one awarded Oscars in their respective categories? Or do you feel like your thinking is still in alignment with everything that you had a feeling?
I'm sorry. Is your question, are my expectations for who the winners will be, does this shape that when we see, this got... I think Zone of Interest has a higher likelihood in its category, and some of those we talked about, where, apparently Anatomy of a Fall is more serious than we thought. Yeah. Apparently Zone of Interest is more serious than we thought. When those movies get nominated in a surprising way, then there's articles about them, and the Zone of Interest, the demand for that movie is going to go through the roof. Both of those movies were select city theater experiences, coastal elite theater experiences. People like us who try to see movies that we hear are going to be maybe nominated, and we want to be in on the conversation. We want to know what are they talking about over there. You're going to film festivals and seeing movies like that. Congratulations. We all give a fuck.
I didn't say it. You brought it up. I didn't mention it once.
Those are movies where then you get articles. People talk about it, more people go see it, it gets a box office bump, or someone's niece and nephew go, oh my gosh, I love that movie. Now people are taking it more seriously when they go to fill out their ballot. Those things actually do matter. I think this is also complicated. It's really hard to say, but for example, Barbie gets less nominations than we thought it might. It could have been right up there with any of the top nomination getters. If you get director and actress and even one more, oh my gosh, that's now the headlining movie of the night. That Oppenheimer, it would have been tied with Poor Things with 3 more. And now you get the Barbenheimer. This is the Barbenheimer Oscars. But then on the flip side, there can be the reaction to the reaction, the backlash to the backlash, to use the Bo Burnham line. And so then you're right, it could get more votes because of that. And we've seen it before where a movie, and voters have even said, oh, I thought that was going to win, so I gave a sympathy vote or a second vote, but I actually used my vote on that movie. And when you look at ranked choice voting, that can change the Best Picture race for sure. This year seems like a shoo-in for Oppenheimer, but some weird things can shake out. Someone has a bad speech. Someone says the wrong thing. Someone says nukes are good and we should nuke blank. And now just suddenly the whole race is turned on its head. And with ranked choice voting, it's not impossible that Barbie wins Best Picture this year. I'm not saying I'm going to predict it right now, but a lot of things could happen. You could also have a weird year where Holdovers somehow is everyone's second choice. Someone, someone drops a nuke in the next 2 months, Oppenheimer will not win Best Picture. I almost want to guarantee that. Right. If they drop the nuke on LA, definitely not.
Yeah, not going to happen.
It's possible.
Definitely not going to happen.
We don't know what the future holds, I guess, is all I'm saying. Knock on wood. Not that they do, but that they don't. I want to make that clear. So I don't want that to happen.
No. But
so
yeah,
all that to say, we see how the nominations go, and now we just have a more complicated narrative and more things to talk about, more information that doesn't really lead me to any clear conclusions this year. Just more information and to go crazy over as we fill out our predictions.
Yeah, which is always like a fun and an exciting part of every Oscar season for between you and I.
Bad and it's daunting and I hate it. It makes me crazy. Also.
But you can stay tuned to us once that moment comes. The awards is in March. So I would say sometime in February, we will probably sit down and go over our Oscar predictions, our ballot and all that. So definitely stay tuned, and we will have an episode dedicated to that, just like how we did last year too. Because again, even though it's very extremely painful for Blake, I find a lot of excitement and enjoyment in it overall. So we would love to hear from you who you think was truly snubbed, who are you excited for, what are your overall predictions for the Oscars going to this year. Let us know in the comments of this video if you're watching it on YouTube, or you could try to leave a comment in the Q&A section on Spotify, or send us the email to the email address attached to the description of this episode, where you could send in your question, comments, and feedback, and we could potentially feature your email in a future episode. Any last words on the whole nominations front here?
Yeah. Justice for Dawn of the Nugget. Not even nominated for animated. I thought it was a shoo-in for Best Picture. What the hell? Oscars. What the hell?
Just when you thought things were going right, it goes right back to how it all was. And once again, they done effed up.
I'm pissed.
Seriously.
Pissed.
Not right. It's not right.
That's it. Yeah.
Could you imagine if Dawn of the Nugget did sneak in there for animated feature, and then maybe it's knocked out?
Likely.
Yeah,
very likely. Honestly, Robot Dreams is probably the 5 spot, which is the most beloved little indie animated movie.
Which one?
Robot Dreams.
Okay.
I'm assuming that's the 5 spot. Nimona's up there, but you could have had Super Smash, you could have had TMNT, you could have had Dawn of the Nugget. And we're seeing with a lot of these awards, director, etc., that they're going more towards the international, more critically acclaimed. It's becoming at least a more elite awards show. And so we're less likely to get Wish and Dawn of the Nugget. It's Super Smash Bros. I'm more likely to get something like Robot Dreams.
Super Smash Bros.
Spanish, as in Spain. What?
You said Super Smash Bros., not Super Mario Brothers.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they're smashing, but that's a whole nother pod.
Oh, I'm sure they are. They're smashing right now to the Peaches song. But
I mean, smashing blocks in the sky, but okay, weirdo.
I'm sure that's exactly what you meant. But yeah. No, it was a fun morning. I'm glad you were able to join in. I'm glad we were able to see the nominations live. if you are listening to this and you happen to have watched our live broadcast, I want to apologize for the double audio. I don't know how that happened. I am so pissed that it happened, so I totally apologize. We'll make sure to have all of our technical difficulties sorted out come time of us reacting live to the Oscars when they are live on air on that day. But that's it for this week's episode. Again, we just wanted to keep it very dedicated to the reaction of the nominations here, because that was a big thing that happened this past week. And to be quite honest with you, it's been a very quiet and slow month of January for movies. I've spent most of my time just catching up on stuff I haven't seen from 2023. I have not seen anything new from this year yet, even though there's like some sprinklings of things that I may want to catch. They just haven't been my number one priority as of right now. So, you know, this is like a time for us to really catch up on things we haven't had a chance to see yet. And I'm sure you're probably doing the same as well on your end. But as we close things out for this week's episode, Blake, where can people find you online?
Find me on the Letterboxd app, where of the 44 movies nominated for Oscars, I'm just going through and just knocking them out, including some that you can only see in one random weird theater in New York City as part of some random film festival. So far, I've seen all but 9 of the full-length features, including 5 that you just literally cannot see right now, but have just been knocking those out. So see me in my Oscars journey, try to see every single one of these, including every weird... I've seen all but 4 of the short films of those 15. Follow along at Letterboxd. My screen name there, last name.
Nice. And you too can also follow me on Letterboxd under the LOWKEY GEEK there, where that is always the prime spot where I first make an entry of any movie that I watch. I give a little blurb and all that, and then we go on and talk about it either on YouTube or here on the episode there. So if you want to see my quick thoughts on movies when I watch them, definitely follow me there, and you can see that I've been slowly catching up on movies. And I have to say, I haven't seen Perfect Days yet, but I did watch Monster recently from Japan. And my gosh, I'm surprised. I wonder what their thought process was when it comes to, you know, choosing one or the other, because that is a film. That is something to definitely watch, and I highly recommend it if you're into Japanese cinema, or you're just into great movies. I highly recommend you watch that. So, obviously, also YouTube. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see video clip outs of the episodes that we do here. And all the other stuff.
Time, that's the place to find it. I'm sure
Absolutely.
Rene will pull any embarrassing clip of me, make it a short. It's my favorite thing about life.
When you do what we do, we are subjected to, you know, criticism, and all the like. I mean, I had someone yell at me. Yeah. I had someone yell at me for calling, you know, Bernstein instead of Bernstein.
You did?
Yeah, I know. It's nuts. It's the internet. What can you do?
How dare you? This is humiliating. I can't believe it.
I know. I'm a hot mess. But if you want to see this hot mess on video, check out the YouTube channel, LOWKEY GEEK there. And obviously, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you follow the podcast channel. Make sure you leave a nice rating and a comment for us. Let's spread the word, get this thing popping for 2024. With all that out of the way, I've been Rene. That's been Blake. This has been an episode of Movie Time. Stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. We will catch you all in the next one. All right. Peace out, everybody. Bye-bye.